So you got a new plant. Congratulations. Now what are you going to do? There are certain things you really need to do when you get a new plant and certain things to avoid. Welcome to my channel. I'm Cece with One Green Pea. In today's video, I have my top 5 do's and top 5 don'ts for when you get a new plant. I just found this philodendron moonlight last week. I was so excited when I saw it. The variegation is really pretty. I love the big leaves and it looks really healthy to me. So I brought it home. But did I place it right with all of my plants? No, I did these 5 things first. Number 1 is inspect. I took a close look at all of the leaves, the stems, and even the soil. And I didn't just do it with my eyes. I got out my trusty lens and I took a really close look. Some insects are super tiny. I mean, most insects are super tiny and they're really difficult to see. So really it is helpful to be able to use a magnifying lens. If you're super fancy, you can get a jeweler's loupe. They're just more complicated and a little harder to use. I find that my magnifying lens works just fine. So I took a close look at the leaves, the stems, and even the soil. I got in here and looked at the soil. And really, in the soil, I was just looking for things that were moving, which would indicate to me that there was some kind of insect or problem. But I was also looking for fungus, and I spotted it on this plant, actually. One of the leaves has a little bit of fungus, and that's really important to note right away so I catch it before it spreads. Another thing to look at is the bottom of the pot. So I pulled this guy up out of the cache pot and look down at the bottom. Look to see if there were roots growing out of the bottom, which would indicate that maybe it had outgrown this pot. And I checked the soil. This soil is still really wet, which indicates that they were probably overwatering it. And so I'm allowing it to dry out a good week or 10 days before I water it again. The second thing I do with all of my new plants is to treat. Every plant gets a good spray down of my Neem Oil Solution. I spray the tops of the leaves, the bottom of the leaves, the stems, and then just allow it to drip dry. I will put the formula for my Neem Oil Solution down in the caption. Now, if I have uncovered any sort of an insect or a problem in my inspection, then I'm going to treat for that as well. As I indicated, this plant has a little bit of fungus on this leaf, so the entire plant got a good spray down with my copper fungicide. I'll put the name of the fungicide that I use down in the notes below as well. The third step for me is the hardest one. I don't know about you, but when I get a new plant, I just want to put it out and display it and look at it. But the third step is isolate. And by isolate, I mean keep it away from all of the rest of your plants. We don't always see all of the insects, all of the problems that we can possibly bring in on our plants. So it's really important to give your plant some time in case maybe there are eggs or something like that that are going to hatch. My isolation zone is the bathtub in my main bathroom. It gets indirect bright light, so there's light, but I can also keep a good eye on it. It's a great spot as well because I can treat my plant and not worry about getting the spray all over. I could just rinse it down the drain. The fourth thing to do when you get a new plant is research. If you don't know what the name of the plant is, then there are a lot of ways of finding that out. The simplest one, of course, is just Google. You can enter the description of the plant into Google, or you can use that cool feature, the Google Lens, where you just aim your camera lens at a piece of the plant, and then helpful suggestions come up. There are also plant apps, plant identification groups on social media, and I'm always happy to help identify your plant. So feel free to connect with me on Instagram and send me a picture of your plant. Beyond finding out what the name of your plant is, you're also going to want to find out care tips and care information. A lot of plants come with a tag in the plant, but they're not always very useful. Usually they're pretty broad and general. So it's good to do your own research. And again, Google can be your friend here, but you can also search YouTube. Once you know the name of the plant, then you can search for information and videos on YouTube. I personally have done a lot of Meet the Plant episodes, and those can be really helpful in describing exactly how to care for your particular plant. Another resource I love to use are books, and I have quite a collection of plant-associated books. Books that are useful for identifying plants, books that are useful for learning how to take care of your plant and propagate your plants. It's really fun to start amassing your own plant library. And if you don't want to purchase the book, certainly check out your local library. The fifth suggestion I have for you is admittedly kind of extra, and that is to create some sort of database or record of the plants that you have. The earlier you start this in your plant collecting hobby, the better. I have just undertaken this. I've created a spreadsheet where I am keeping track of my plants, both by common and botanical names. I'm trying to enter in when and where I got the plant and associated other information about it. It's really fun to keep track and to go back and look at how much growth you've seen or any problems that have emerged, so you can start to see some patterns. Again, you can do that as fancy as a spreadsheet, but there are also apps that help you track that, and you could just write it in a book or keep notes on your phone. It could be really simple. Okay, so we covered the do-dos. Let's talk about the don't-dos. When you get a new plant, don't repot it immediately. Give it some time. Whether you purchased your plant from a nursery or a plant shop or even a big box store, the conditions the plant was in are going to be different than the conditions of your home. No matter what, it's going to need some time to adjust. So don't further disrupt it by repotting the plant. Secondly, don't expect the plant to look as good as it looked in the nursery or in the plant shop if it was receiving good treatment. It's going to have a little bit of shock when it comes home. Maybe it'll misbehave just a little bit. Don't worry about that. Which kind of leads me to my third one, and that is don't freak out if you get some yellow leaves or some leaf drop. That's just bound to happen, and it's not necessarily indicative of a problem. You want to give it several weeks to really adapt and get used to the conditions that you have for it. The fourth one is don't fertilize the plant. Again, we're really trying to keep everything as simple and as unstressful as possible for the plant. And we don't want to stimulate growth or flowering. We really just want the plant to kind of hang out and have a little time to get used to its new home. And the final don't is don't prune the plant. I know you might want to cut off some leaves that don't look so good, or maybe, oh, I've got such great growth, I can trim off that vine and propagate it already. Again, less stress is better. Give it a few weeks, give it a month even, before you start to trim and shape and prune the plant. Getting a new plant is exciting. Being stressed out that you might be killing your plant is not. Hopefully these 5 do's and don'ts will help you so that the next plant you get can ease into your plant collection. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Share my channel with any of your friends who are also plant parents. As always, my plant friends, let's keep growing together a greener world.